What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, gonna go over the trades we took today inside the Discord as well as the plan going into tomorrow. So I'm gonna pull up the SPY charts really quick just to show you guys what today looked like. And today was a pretty good day if you did trade SPY because there was a good opportunity. So going into today, you could see obviously on the call side really not much going on, and all these other time frames on the calls were actually going negative, which did kind of spark a pretty big move down. And like I said yesterday, this 4-hour 50 was the pretty much top of SPY, and we hit the 50 and rejected, and you can see what happened. And then when we flipped to the put side, the 30-minute actually flipped bullish here today, or not bullish, bearish. So the 10 SMA went above the 50 here on the puts, and we saw a move lower. It was shaping up really nice for a move lower. We got a closure above the 10 and the 50 right here. 10 SMA is going above the 50, and yeah, we crossed, got a move lower. And when we pull up the 0-day charts, it was actually a really good cross. So if we pull up SPY really quick, I'm going to try and find it on the 42s so you can see what happened here. 5-minute time frame, look at the move. I mean, this is such a clean chart. Finally a very clean move on SPY. 10 going above the 50, we got this cross right here. You really could have played this 10 SMA reclaim. I mean, you probably could have made some on this initial cross. On this candle you probably could have entered, and then that was like almost 100% on that move. And then once we got back above the 10 SMA, you go short again, and your stop loss below the 50, and look at the move you get. I mean, that's a very, very big move. You could expect a solid move because that 30-minute chart was crossing. So for SPY today, that would have been your play to take. You could have played that cross right there, or play the reclaim of the 10, because at the time we did not flip bearish yet. So you would have been playing this reclaim of the 10 SMA. Honestly, probably could have bought that 50 dip if you wanted, just because of how the 30-minute ended up looking. It was most likely we were going to flip bearish, but again, you can wait for that confirmation right here at 1140, closure above the 10, and we got the big move lower. So that was the opportunity today on SPY. It was pretty simple. There was nothing bullish about today. I guess you could say the only thing that really is bullish about SPY is if we actually flip to the monthly contracts. You could see that right now on the 650s for, nope, these are not the right ones. If we go to the 650s for September, we're actually sitting right around this daily 50. So we end up wicking off of it a little bit in a close. We're gonna have to see how this plays out, because right now the market's bearish. If we start to get a closure below this 50 and the 10 SMA is turning down, 50 is turning down, then I would be really, really bearish on the market. And if that does happen, we're gonna see a significant move lower. I went over this in yesterday's video. If we do get this chart to cross negative on the monthly, we're going to see a significant move down. And where could we see a move down into? It'll be pretty much the opposite side of the premium. So 640 puts on this daily time frame. You can see there's plenty of room to drop. I mean, these contracts are at what, like $8 to $9 a piece, and these are further out expirations. So we have plenty of room to drop all the way up to like $22 a contract up in here if that daily chart does cross negative on the call side. So we're going to see how we form the next couple of days on that daily time frame and see what happens. But for now, your focus is on the short side. Personally, I wouldn't be buying that like monthly 50 dip. I would just kind of play and gravitate towards what the 30 minutes telling me. And eventually, if we do see that monthly 50 start to give, then maybe you could swing some short if we start to cross negative. But for now, just play the 5-minute crosses on the put side if we get it, and that'll be that. Once the 30-minute, if the 30-minute trend does give out and the 30-minute goes negative on the put side, then most likely we're going to see that bounce. So pretty much it's just a waiting game of seeing, are we going to continue with the trend and keep playing the 5-minute dips to the 50 and the crosses, or are we going to end up bouncing off that monthly 50 and the puts go negative, and then we could go long off of that. So those are kind of two scenarios that you could watch for on SPY. What we did today, very simple. First trade of the day was actually a loser, so we ended up playing Hood. Hood, this was such a weird candle, man. This was so weird. This looks so good off of open. It actually, apparently it never crossed here off of open, which it pretty much did, because if you guys saw the contracts, they looked really good. I mean, we were all the way up here at open. I entered at 120, actually stopped out for like 55%. So this is a bigger loss in terms of percentage. Usually it's not that much because I did grab the Friday expiration. So, it is a shorter expiration that I took. That's kind of why the loss was 55%. But again, we had this massive wick on this candle. It was just, not a good trade. I did jump the gun a little bit, but I mean, it did look really good when we were obviously green on this 30-minute candle, but obviously, in hindsight, doesn't look that good of a trade. But that's what we took today on Hood. I mean, is what it is. We took a loss. Again, it was not the best setup in the world. I should have waited for the 30-minute candle closure, but obviously that didn't end up playing out in my favor. But yeah, I mean, also another little confluence was the 4-hour chart on the monthlies was I think it closed above the 10, the 50, so that's kind of why I was looking for Hood to cross. But yeah, Hood, L. If we go to here, TSM. This was a good little cross that we ended up playing on the 30-minute. Again, I should have taken the shorter expiration, but I ended up taking like a month out contracts, the 9/12 contracts. So again, 35% on those. It was very weird though, because we ended up making new lows into the close and the contracts didn't make new highs, which was a little weird. So the contracts weren't the best that we picked. Again, if you took like shorter expiration, this would have paid big time, because I entered down in here when the contracts were like 230, 240. So if you would have played the Friday expirations here, you would have made, like 100% just about. But that's on me. I should have just went with the shorter expiration since the 30-minute was crossing. But yeah, we had the 30-minute crossing, 1-hour crossing, and this is a pretty key pivot we're at. We're at the 2-hour 50. I didn't trim any going into tomorrow because I want to see this 4-hour 50 get hit. I know we didn't. We came pretty close to it. I mean, this is really, really close to the 50. But again, obviously, I'm going to close this tomorrow if we don't get the move lower, most likely. But yeah, this 4-hour 50 is going to be a pretty hefty spot to get over. And, who knows, the bottom might already be in for TSM. We're just going to have to see how we open up tomorrow. But yeah, I'd expect some sort of bounce from this 50 SMA. Obviously, I'm not going to play it, but this is kind of where, this is kind of how I judge where I, take profit out on these types of trades. But it was a very clean 30-minute cross. It gave a really good entry. Unfortunately, just wasn't able to squeeze that much out of it so far. I mean, 35%. It's not bad. It's just not bad. But, most of my trades, I'm not looking to sell until like we hit 50 to 70%. So, yeah, TSM, that's what we took today. Those are the two trades. And then, again, Apple is one that I'm going to be watching over the next couple of days. I told you guys this last couple of videos. But, again, it's just kind of pulling back here. The market is bearish, obviously, so everything's kind of dropping. And, if Apple does, if we eventually flip back bullish, this Apple chart will be a really good trade to watch for. Since the monthlies are crossed, this 50 SMA is key support. Again, what I'm looking for Apple is either this dip to the 50 or this 30-minute chart to cross. Honestly, I'm probably just going to be waiting for the 30-minute to cross, because, if the monthlies on SPY end up crossing negative, that's most likely going to cause everything else to drop with it. So like Apple's going to drop, possibly lose the monthly 50. So if that does happen, I'm probably just going to be looking for that 30-minute cross on the weeklies, just so I had the extra confirmation with the trade. But yeah, it's a little weird when the SPY chart is flipping bearish and there's still some bullish charts on individual stocks. I kind of like to see SPY align with the individual stocks. Like if SPY is bullish, I want to be playing crosses on calls on like individual stocks. Then when SPY is bearish, I want to be playing puts on individual stocks. So when like they're conflicting in opposite biases or directions, then that's kind of where it's best to just sit out of those trades and just wait for something that aligns with the trend in the market. So yeah, that was Apple, or like kind of the plan for Apple. What other one do we have? FSLR, man, I really wish I was able to get an entry on this. It just didn't end up happening. I mean, we go to this 30-minute chart right here. This ended up causing a big move. I mean, right here, I think I went over this a couple days ago, but I wanted like a pullback to this 50. We just never got it, and FSLR ended up ripping. Obviously, I'm not going to be taking. I'm not buying this 50 dip down in here. These contracts are really expensive, and they look like a little funky down in these candles. So I'm not buying that dip. But that was just the opportunity last couple of days. And like I said, this monthly chart ended up crossing. This is one that I was watching, but there was news that came out during the day and ended up just setting this thing before we could actually get in. So that was unfortunate. Microsoft was a very good setup, man. I really wish we had an entry on this, because this daily chart right here, crossing negative on the monthlies, not a good look at all for Microsoft. And then if we pull up the weeklies on Microsoft, this ended up absolutely dumping today. Obviously, SPY dumped, everything else dumped with it, but Microsoft was one that I really wanted to get an entry on going into today. We just couldn't get an entry point, so I'm trying to find the contracts really quickly. Microsoft, it's probably it's these ones, but this is what the 30-minute looked like. Look at this. I mean, this is such a clean cross. Only problem is, I really like this initial cross. I wasn't entering because we were still, hovering around that daily 50 SMA. So I kind of want to see us break it first, then get a dip to the 50. We really didn't get any dip to the 50. I mean, they came down to like 368, and I wanted to see a move a little bit closer to the 50. I wish today off the open we kind of bounced, went down to the 50, bounced, and then continue with the move. But sometimes you're not going to get the entry. Microsoft was just a really good trade. Every time frame was pretty much crossing here. 2 hour was crossing. I'm not sure what the 4 hour looks like. No 4 hour 50 SMA there. But Microsoft, unfortunately, sometimes the move's just going to happen without you. And, we didn't get the entry on that. But, wasn't a terrible day. I mean, Hood was just a annoying trade because of how funky the chart was. It just ended up with like crazy wick up and then, ended up getting stopped out on that. Probably should have waited a little bit after open to get in that. That's kind of my fault because obviously first 30 minutes of the day, a little bit more volatile. And I just like the chart, so I gave an entry point on it. But yeah, TSM, good trade. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I still like TSM. Again, who knows if it's gonna end up rejecting that 4 hour 50 right now, or we're gonna see a little bit of a move lower. But I'm still holding my swing on that. And then, like I said, for SPY, just play your 5-minute crosses on the puts. The 50 dip on puts will also work because market is bearish. And then, again, over the next couple days, got to watch out for that monthly daily chart going negative. Because if that happens, we're going to see probably a really significant move lower and probably drop to the 50 SMA on the monthly puts. So that's pretty much plan for tomorrow, what we did today. And, yeah, if you guys enjoy, drop a like, drop a sub. If you guys want to learn, join the Discord down below. But, yeah, that's all I got. I'm out. Peace.